All right, it's telling me that we're live now, so I will say hello to everybody, everybody that's joining us on Facebook Live, and we've got folks in the Zoom room as well. Really happy to have you all here. This is my first time doing my own program, at least for the genealogy local history series that we have here at the library. So I'm really happy to be doing it. Real quick, who I am. My name is Sam Jack. I am the Public Relations and Special Services Supervisor, which means that I do all the communication stuff for the library. So all of the press releases, Facebook posts, photos, flyers and posters, that's all from me. And the special services, they include the genealogy and local history stuff, which is a lot of fun to help out with. And I also help facilitate the photography group here. So that's about me. And now we'll dive right into the presentation. And as I said just a minute ago, if you have a question or a comment, please share it. Those of you watching on Facebook can type it in the chat. And let me get that going actually so I can see the comments. And yeah, I'll be able to see your comments in the chat if you want to type in the chat. And of course, those of you in the Zoom room, again, you can join in speaking verbally or type comments, whichever you're more comfortable with. And all right. So the first question, what's in a personal archive? And the shoebox here might give you a clue to the answer to that question. You've got photos. I know that we have photos like this, literally in shoe boxes. And beyond photos, you've got journals, diaries, and memoirs. Really, you're really fortunate if you do have those journals, diaries, and memoirs because they give a lot of great insight into the family history. And then another category of physical stuff in a personal archive that could include yearbooks, personal papers, and ephemera. And what ephemera is like wedding invitation like you see on the right here. It could be your wedding veil. It could be baby's first binky, any kind of stuff like that. So that's the kind of stuff that people have been organizing and filing away and making into their personal archive, whether they called it that or not, for a long, long time. But now there's this new category, relatively new, I guess. It's been around for a while now, which is all this stuff, all the social media accounts that you or your family might be on, all the stuff that you have on your cell phone, like photos and videos and apps and stuff like that. And that's a whole another category of stuff that you might want to organize and put together in a way that you can pass it down or even just pass it sideways, to somebody else in your family or a friend of yours. But we're going to come back to the digital side of things. First, I want to go back to that shoebox full of photos. And what do you do with that? Say you've got a shoebox or multiple shoeboxes of photos. What do you do? It can be a little bit daunting, especially if they've been sitting around for a long time. If you've got a lot of material, if some of it is in not the greatest condition, you're not sure who some of these people even are. What do you do? Well, Denise Levinik, who runs this great website and blog that I suggest you check out called thefamilycurator.com. She's got something that she calls the parking lot system. And she calls it the parking lot system because old family photos are like cars. They need a place to live out of the elements when they aren't being displayed or driven. And by driven, she means like taking a drive down memory lane, getting those photos out and using them for what they're intended for, to remember stuff. So here are the steps of that parking lot system. First step, wash your hands. Always a good idea when you're working with, especially with print materials. It's usually recommended to definitely wash your hands, make sure they're dry. There's usually no need to wear gloves. And then step two, and I would call this optional, you can do this if you want. It just depends on how fragile the materials are that you have. Would be to unroll a sheet of butcher paper on your dining room table. And then you take that box and you unpack the box in layers by keeping any groups together. And this is actually a principle that applies equally to, it's one of the core principles of archival science, the way it's practiced at libraries and real archives when you're dealing with material that you're accessioning, bringing in, is to keep the original groupings together at least long enough that you can glean any information that's embedded in the arrangement of materials. So there might not be any writing on the photos to tell you what they are, but they might be in chronological order already. They might already be grouped by certain events. And you want to look at that and make sure you've got that information before you start mixing everything up. The next one is remove any staples, paper clips, rubber bands. I've definitely seen at my father's a lawyer, and he's got files that go all the way back to the early 20th century. You can definitely see those old staples and rubber bands in particular. They rust, they degrade, and they damage the documents underneath. So if you see those, just get rid of them. And then survey the contents and start sorting. There I've got some different ways that you could sort. Whatever makes sense based on what you know and what's in your collection. Could be family groupings, could be individual people, could be events or dates, or could be types of image if you've got portraits. And then you can cross-reference those loose photos also with any labeled photos or photo albums that you have. And then continuing, this is where the parking lot metaphor comes in, is that the parking spaces that Ms. Levinik suggests are these 3x5 index cards, and you write the names or the places or whatever makes sense, and just put those down, and then you can start sorting, get the photos into the different piles, you know, and then just keep doing that. As you go along, you might discover more about, or you might remember more. You might discover information within the photos itself that help clarify things. I've found that looking at a lot of photos, you actually get better while you're doing it at identifying who different people are. And then you might, oh, this is not my uncle, this is my cousin or whatever. So then the final two steps would, to kind of wrap things up, would be to take the photo groups and put them in these acid-free photo storage envelopes or folders where they're in the best possible situation to be preserved physically, and they've got that information attached to them so that your work in organizing them is preserved. And if you're really ambitious, you can actually create that inventory sheet that's listed in step 9. And those of you that are involved in genealogy, I think would know about that. Definitely a great way to really get things organized. But on that note, that's what I got down at the bottom there. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You know, if you have 2,000 photos to organize, and you think to yourself, oh gee, I can't possibly turn this into my perfect personal archive situation. I don't have time. You know, you're never going to get started. So I think that it's a great thing if you've got one big pile of photos, even if you just split them into 2 big piles of photos, you know, you've gotten somewhere. So I would say just the most important step is to get started. Okay. And you know, on physical preservation, I touched on that a little bit. That's why it's a great idea to get those archival or photo safe is what the product name would say. I think pretty much anything that's listed as archival or photo safe would be a good bet. Of course, I could do an entire and this is going to be a common theme, all this stuff, I could do an entire presentation just about each one of these subjects, and maybe I will sometime. But this is just kind of a bird's eye view for now. You know, you get those archival or photo safe folders or scrapbooks. And I would say, and actually family photos of my mother's family that we're in the process of going through, a lot of them are in these so-called magnetic albums, which they're not actually magnetic, but they were kind of sold that way. The idea is that there's like a kind of a plastic sheet that you can lift up and put the photos in, and then the plastic sheet comes down and they'll stay in place. You don't have to glue anything. You can move stuff around. So that's the benefit. The problem with it is that these plastic layers, they cause yellowing to happen at an accelerated rate because the materials are acidic. And you can see this photo here, how the paper is yellowed and the photos themselves are yellowed as well. So just taking photos out of these magnetic albums, it will slow down the yellowing process. And also some of these, the adhesive will stick to the photos, and it can be impossible to remove them without damaging them. So if you see those magnetic albums, just think about transferring. And speaking of preserving photos and stuff, the one obvious way to do it is to scan. So here are just some considerations and thoughts about scanning photos and documents. You want to prioritize. I mean, if you don't have time or resources to scan everything, you might think about prioritizing older photos or documents that are degraded. You can get your own scanner. I've seen them on the internet as cheap as $70, but you want to check the reviews because some of them are really only good for scanning documents and won't get a high enough quality for a photo. Definitely want a flatbed scanner if you're working with fragile materials, not one of those scanners that pulls stuff through. And if you don't want to buy a scanner or don't have one, we do have a scanner station available at Newton Public Library that you're welcome to come in and use. Right now, due to COVID-19, we do have a 30-minute time limit that we're asking folks to adhere to just because of the limits on capacity that we have right now. But really, a 30 minutes seems like a great amount of time to spend on scanning stuff, and then you can go about your day and come back to it later. Or if you don't want to mess around with the scanning yourself, there are paid services that will do it for you. You basically you kind of have to trust them because you basically send them your box of photos or your folder full of photos, and then they send the photos back to you along with a thumb drive or a CD disk or something where all the photos are scanned. And then once you do have the photos scanned, you can reprint them. You can share them digitally and you can store them digitally. And the great thing about scanning them is, like, if you do have a photo that's yellowed, like I've got looking behind me, my parents' wedding photo, I can see it starting to fade and yellow a little bit. You can actually go into a photo editor, and with just a few clicks, you can fix some of that damage or correct it back to how it probably looked originally. And again, that's a whole nother class about how to do that. But it's something that it is easy to do yourself once you learn how it's done. Or I think there are services that will do that as well. So this document what you're doing and what you still need to do. Again, those of you watching that have some experience with genealogy, well aware of this principle, I would say. It's just going to save you a lot of hassle, and if somebody else comes along to take over your project afterward, it'll save them a lot of hassle to know where you are. That can be keeping a little notebook with what you did and what you're planning to do. It can be writing it on the folders where you're organizing stuff. It can even just be emailing notes to yourself or something like that. But that's definitely a way to make sure that your work doesn't go to waste. Okay. Well, I'm just going to pause here for any questions or comments or thoughts about this so far. Feel free to unmute yourself. Am I hearing somebody? No? Oh, okay. Well, I will just I will keep going. If you think of, I'm gonna continue now, but if you think of something again, please feel free to jump in. There's really no way around it. You have to interrupt on Zoom. It's not like being in person. It's just a little bit clunky that way. So that's kind of, and again, that's kind of the bird's eye view on some just thoughts and considerations. Hopefully you learned something, even if you already knew some of it. Maybe it helped you think about it in a new way, or think about something that you could try. But now we're going to get around to some stuff that I think will probably be less familiar to several of you. You know, and about the, like, we've got logos for LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you know, all these different social media services that you might be using, or that your kids might be using, or that your parents might be using, your family might be using. You know, I was talking about it earlier with my mother, who I see her watching there. Hi, Mom. And you know, she was saying, like, well, you know, we've got these shoe boxes, but you know, the younger generation, yes, some of them are going to print off photos, but some of them don't. And instead of looking through a shoebox after somebody passes away to pull out those photos that are such a comfort and such a great thing to remember somebody, you know, we're going to be going on Facebook.com or Instagram.com and trying to pull stuff up there and get that into a format that we can use for the memorial, or just to have in the years that follow. So I think that being a little bit, and again, you know, we're kind of the first generation that has this that has this change in place. So it's definitely something to think about, and try to do the best we can to make things easy on ourselves, easy on people who might be looking through our personal stuff after we die, or just our family that might want to look at it, you know, while we're still around. So the big thing that I think, it might seem obvious, it might not, but a big thing to remember is that, you know, just like those photos can yellow and fall apart, or get sun damage, digital files are not immortal either. You know, they're not like this cave painting I've got in the background from Lascaux Cave in France, where these cave paintings are still vivid 13,000 years later, even though nobody until recently did anything much to preserve them. You know, that I would be really surprised if there's a whole lot that's still preserved in 13,000 years, especially if people aren't really intentional about preserving it. So here's some life expectancies of the different digital storage methods. I would say these are on the conservative side. You know, your CDs or your floppy disks or your hard disk drives, they might last longer than this. They might last a lot longer than this if you get lucky. But on the other hand, they might go kaput before you're expecting them to. You know, magnetic tape, which is kind of the preferred storage method for long-term storage of digital stuff. Even that, the big tech companies are constantly refreshing the data on new magnetic tape, because the tape fails after 10 years or so. Flash drives, 5 to 10 years. CDs and DVDs, you know, 5 to 10 years if they're blank, or even 2 to 5 if they're recorded. I know there are products out there that claim to be better than that, but you know, it's just something to be aware of. And then cloud storage, it's which by cloud storage I'm talking about services where you upload your photos or your digital materials to something like Facebook would be an example, or Dropbox or Google Drive, any stuff like that. And there's a million different services. I just put a question mark there because, you know, these services, they're run by companies, and the companies have their ups and downs, and sometimes they just go out of existence. I've read about cloud photo storage companies that went bankrupt and went out of existence pretty abruptly, and people really struggled to get their data back and not lose their photos and stuff. And actually, I was looking into it. Canon, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, all in the last few years, have had free photo cloud services that a lot of people signed up for, and they all discontinued those services or scaled them back in recent years. So if you weren't paying attention, you could actually just lose all the photos that you put up there. And I realized in the process of researching this that it kind of happened to me personally, because Facebook used to have an app called Facebook Moments where you could upload photos and share them with your family. Well, they discontinued that app about a year ago, and I guess they sent out a notice to everybody, hey, get your photos, we're discontinuing this app. But I didn't download them, and I'm not sure if anybody else in my family did either. So I think we may have lost some photos when Facebook discontinued that app. So cloud storage has its advantages, but it's not any kind of a ultimate total solution. And that's why there's this 3-2-1 backup rule, which is not only for photos and personal archive materials, but really for any digital stuff that you want to make sure that you have. If you do this 3-2-1 backup procedure, it would really take a lot for you to still lose your data. And the 3 is make 3 copies. The 2 is have at least 2 of those copies on 2 different types of media. And then you keep 1 copy in a different location from the other 2, basically. So, you know, the reason behind that is if my house burns down and all 3 of my backups are in my house, you know, that might be a loss right there. So here are a couple of different examples of how you could fulfill those 3-2-1. And the first one there is actually what I have. My first copy is my home computer hard drive, the computer I'm on right now. My second copy, let me see if I can pull this out here, is, come on. My second copy is this external backup hard drive, which is plugged into my main hard drive. So if main hard drive fails, I've got this and it backs up automatically. And then my third copy is a cloud storage service. I use Dropbox, which I've got my important files backed up on. Another option there is, you know, you could actually have one of your copies be printing everything off. And you could have another copy just be the stuff on a thumb drive. The question is, you know, what's important enough to back up? And the answer to that question will kind of inform the approach that you take to choosing what your 3-2-1 are. You know, yeah, Kathy said, yeah, remote location could be a thumb drive or a CD in a safe deposit box. Yeah, that's a great point. And the safe deposit box gets the offsite thing going there too. Yeah, so, you know, what's important enough to back up? If you really, all you want to back up on from your computer is photos, then you can probably do like just a photo-centric cloud service, and you don't need to back up your entire hard drive maybe. Or maybe it's the simplest to go ahead and back up your entire hard drive. There are online services that will allow you to upload your entire computer hard drive contents to the cloud. And those are great. I mean, they cost something. You have to pay a monthly subscription, but that might be the option for you. So I'm going to kind of shift topics here a little bit. Backing up social media content. You know, you might be reading this and thinking, how does that need to be backed up? It seems like it's just there. Well, it's kind of this, the social media sites, if you think about it, they kind of are a cloud backup service in a lot of ways. You know, they have some other different functions, but they still have that cloud functionality underneath. So, you know, are we sure that Facebook or Instagram is going to have the same business model in 5 or 10 years? You know, I don't think we can be sure, because I mean, think 10 years in the past about how different things were with technology, or even 20 or 30 years in the past. And, you know, just things change. So it's definitely something to think about backing up. And fortunately, these services, they've got ways for you to do that. And I'm gonna tell you what they are real quick for especially for Facebook. So on Facebook, Facebook. Basically, all these services do make it possible now to download all of your information, including all of your posts, all of your photos, all of your videos, even everything you've ever liked. It'll have a little log note that you liked this or that. So you can download it all. So to do this on Facebook, you have to be on the desktop side. It won't do it on the mobile version. Up in the upper right corner, it's kind of hard to find, but you click on settings and then your Facebook information, and you get to this screen where Facebook lets you say, oh, I want to download absolutely everything, or I just want to download stuff within these dates. I want to download only these types of content, whatever it might be. So Facebook has a really great tool for that. And then, okay. Instagram, kind of similar thing, because they are the same company now, Facebook and Instagram, just settings and then privacy and security, data download. Instagrams you can't customize. The only option is to download everything. And I would definitely recommend that you do this if you haven't done it yet. It's just a great thing to add to your personal collection, so that you have control of it, and you're not just relying on a server somewhere in California to hold on to your stuff. Okay. So this is just a warning. It's possible to think in terms of your strategy for preserving digital stuff. You can consider a site like Facebook as part of that strategy to make sure things are backed up. But I would just say a word of caution, which is that social media sites, they compress stuff. And what compression means is that they've got a program that scans through the code that turns into the photo on your screen. And it says, oh, I don't think we need this information. I don't think we need this information. And it takes out that information so that the file will take up less space on their servers. Because if you think about the billions of people that use these services, they can save an awful lot of money by reducing the size of the files that people are putting up there. Sometimes the compression is pretty noticeable. Sometimes you can't even see it. Each service is different. Usually the compression is such that it still looks pretty great on a mobile phone, which is where most people are using social media these days. But then when you go to print it out, or when you want to blow it up to print it out or something like that, it ends up looking kind of disappointing, pixelated quality. You can see this here, the butterfly, and then the same butterfly after it's been run through a photo compression algorithm. So I would just say, the original file generated by your camera is pretty much always going to be the highest quality that you can get. So offloading that file and not onto a, directly from your camera to a hard drive, you're not going to lose any quality. Okay. So this is another aspect that maybe we haven't thought about a lot about, but it's definitely something that I think is important, and I think it's important to deal with before, just like writing a will. It's important to deal with it before you're in poor health or before your family member's in poor health. Is to manage your digital legacy. I've read stories about families that they have their spouses or their deceased loved ones' smartphone, but it's locked. It's locked and they don't know the password and they can't get in. So they know that there's this phone that has all these photos that their spouse took, and it's got all kinds of messages between them and the family that they would love to have as part of the legacy of that loved one, but they don't know how to get in, and you can try to guess the password, but you might not be able to guess it. That's an extreme example, but that's the kind of thing you can prevent a lot of grief for yourself or for your loved ones if you think about how you're going to pass on your social media, your cloud services, your email accounts, whatever you see fit to pass on to the next generation or to your loved ones. Back to Facebook. Facebook is pretty far ahead of the curve of any other services on this. They've actually come up with a whole system that allows you to set up a legacy contact. And that legacy contact is someone that you choose to look after your account after you pass away. And the person that you choose will be able to manage tribute posts on your profile, take your account down off the internet if that's what you want. You don't want it to be there after you've passed away. Change your profile picture. And if you want, you can enable it so that they can download that backup that I mentioned earlier, the backup that has everything you've ever shared on Facebook, except private messages. The screenshot on the right is kind of what the dialogue looks like. And you can see there, I've chosen my parents' Facebook account as my legacy contact. Doesn't mean I expect to go anywhere anytime soon, but might as well. I allowed them to access all of my data archive. I hope that they don't find anything that they don't like in that, if it comes up, which it shouldn't. Okay. So this memorializing function is related, but different. And it's actually something that you can do to any Facebook page of a person that's passed away, whether or not they knew about legacy contacts, whether or not they set them up. And I think it's kind of a nice thing that you might think about doing for a loved one with a Facebook page that's passed away. Basically, and I tried to find a way, the easiest thing to do is just do a Google search for memorialized Facebook page, and you'll get to the screen where it explains how to do this. But basically what you do is you send Facebook a photo or a screenshot of an obituary, death certificate, something that proves that the person really has passed away. And then Facebook will change their Facebook page in a few ways. They put this little thing across the top with the flowers, and they add the word remembering above the person's name. And the benefits, which is nice in itself. And then the benefits are that nobody can log into this account. So actually this, the journalist who was tragically killed in Iraq, after he was killed, people actually hacked into his Facebook page and posted awful stuff on it, which was really disturbing to a lot of people. So this nobody can log in once it's memorialized, so that won't happen. You can still keep posting stuff on there, sharing memories. All the previous content's still there. And another good thing about it is that it turns off features Facebook has that might make the person's face kind of pop up at random, like people you may know, or birthday reminders, personalized ads, stuff like that, which could be really upsetting. Instagram accounts can also be memorialized, but it's much more limited than what Facebook will do. So that's a pretty cool thing. And then I already knew about this stuff with Facebook, and then I kind of started looking, what about other social media, other online accounts? And beyond Facebook and Instagram, nobody else really has this stuff built in. But I think the best approach is to, basically to consider, you might think about putting a list of your online accounts and your usernames and your passwords. You might consider actually putting that in your will, or just giving that to a trusted person, or letting people know, hey, here's where it is. Of course, that is a little bit of a security risk to have all your passwords lying around somewhere. So the other option would be to use a password manager, which can help streamline this. And also password managers are great in terms of improving your online security. Basically what a password manager does is it allows you to have one master password for all your sites, and then the actual passwords that you use to log in each individual site are encrypted, and you don't have to remember them. And I don't really know all the technology behind it, but I'm assured that it's more secure. It's a great thing. And this one particular one, LastPass, which I think it might be one of the most popular password managers out there, it actually has a mechanism where you can designate a trusted person who will be able to get access to your password manager and all of the accounts and stuff that are linked to the password manager just after a delay. So they request access, and then LastPass sends an email to your email address, and then you have 24 hours or 48 hours to say yay or nay to the emergency access. So that's whether that's something you want to pursue or not. It's definitely an option that's out there. And I guess just kind of concluding this part of it, I would just say, do have the conversation with your family, with your children. I think that it's just to set this up. It doesn't take that much effort. There are ancillary benefits to it, and it has the potential to save a lot of difficulty and frustration at what would already be a difficult time. So I guess this timed out just about right. Great, because that's what I was aiming for. I'm glad. So again, I would love to get some questions or comments or get a discussion going. I know that you all have probably done stuff in this vein, and just curious to hear your thoughts or questions. Feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat on Facebook.
I would second the notion that you should keep a list of passwords. And if your mother is 93 years old, you should know where her passwords are. My mother passed away last fall. And so just recently, my sister and I decided that we wanted to delete her or inactivate her Facebook rather than memorialize it. And everything we tried, we didn't have the password with us. And even if you tried the backup contact people things, you ended up needing to send something to her email, and we didn't have her email password either. Fortunately, in the end, my brother had a copy of those passwords, and then it was easy to delete her account.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really a good thing. I'm glad that worked out for you, because I think that they don't if you hadn't been able to find that, I don't think there would have been any way to delete her account. And notoriously, Facebook does not have a customer support phone number you can call. It's almost impossible to get a hold of a human at Facebook or at any of these big tech companies. So if you don't do things their way, then you're out of luck.
Sam, I just want to say thank you. You shared some really good information and things I didn't know. So I really am glad I tuned in.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm glad. Let's see here, and if anybody else wants to jump in with questions, I did put in one more slide that I thought I would do if there was time, and here's that. I didn't get into a whole lot of product recommendations because of the breadth of what I was talking about here. I felt like it wouldn't be that manageable, but I think this one is worth a recommendation if you're looking for, like, I know a lot of people, they take photos and they just pile up on their phone until you have a million photos on your phone and there's hardly room for anything else on your phone, and it's just really hard to deal with. Well, if you're looking for a solution to that, I think Google Photos might be the way to go. And so they do offer unlimited storage in what they call high quality, which high quality does mean they run it through a compression algorithm like we talked about earlier. But it's a really good compression algorithm. And unless you're using like a professional grade camera, you're not going to notice any difference. and you'll still be able to print it out big. And it's got, the great thing is it's got apps that you can download to your smartphone and just set it loose, and it'll upload all your photos to the Google Photos, and then you can delete them off your phone and free up the space that you need. All kinds of sharing features, organization features, and it even does video.
Wow.
I think it's pretty unlikely that Google will just pull the plug on it altogether, just because of the size and reputation of Google. But yeah, just a caution, you know, free now doesn't mean free forever. They could start charging, they could make the free offer less generous. So I would say, you know, use Google Photos, but don't just set it and forget it, or you might regret it. Yes, somebody saying something? Okay, and I do have one more thing. This just our library here. You know, we're here to help. We can answer your questions. I've gone through a whole lot of technology stuff, and if you need help with that, you know, you don't have to struggle alone. Just give us a call, send us an email, stop by, and I'll help you if I can. Or we've got other people. We've got our IT supervisor Nathan, who knows a lot more about technology than I do. Oh, I think I've got a chat question. Okay, Facebook legacy contact is extremely useful. Yep. And okay, thank you, Kristen. And yeah, thank you, Kathy. Where was I? Oh yeah, my dad just walked in and said, look at your chat questions. So I appreciate that, Dad. Yeah, we can answer your questions, you know, and that's what we're here for. That's what we love to do. We've got all kinds of books about this stuff, and online resources that we can find for you or direct you to. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got computers, we've got printers, copiers, scanners. You know, if you want, we've got photo editing software on the computers. Just bring a flash drive or a thumb drive, or be ready to email stuff to yourself to take it home with you.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
How many photos do you think you can scan in a half an hour?
How many photos do I think you can scan in?
30 minutes in the time limit.
Oh, in the time, well, oh, damn, he turned the lights out on me. But I think, you know, the scanner is not terribly fast, I think, but it is a big scanner. So I think that if you put them down, multiple ones on a scan, you could probably do, I don't know, maybe two dozen photos. Yeah, so you know, and you'd probably get faster if you practiced at it, I think. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not ideal right now with the COVID-19 situation, but we're looking forward to the day when we can up the capacity in the library and take away those time limits, and you can scan to your heart's content.
I got a comment.
Uh-huh.
And that is to not be afraid of buying your own scanner. You can go down to Best Buy. We have an Epson. It's probably 3 years old or so, but it will do flatbed photos, black and white or color. Then you can take out the lid and put in a tray for slides, for negatives, color, black and white negatives. The software then has adjustments, light, dark, color adjustments. You can choose resolution. Usually we do 300 dpi, but we've done usually slides or negatives up to 1200 dpi. I think it's, once you get the hang of it, it's very important. What Nancy and I have gone through in October, both our mothers cleaned out houses. Nancy's mother died. My mother moved to assisted living. And so we are still going through the boxes of things that are family archives. But even 2 years before this, I scanned my own mother's prints and slides, 2,900 images. It took me about the whole month of August to do that. While I'm retired, you can do that. But if you get into a project like that, you can't just run down to the public library. You need to spend some midnight hours doing all that. But once you've got it, then you go, wow, then I can share this to my siblings and cousins and people who have never seen some of these images. So my point is, don't be afraid of buying your own scanner. Research it like anything else.
And I might just add, I saw there were some chat questions about how to get started when you have a huge amount. And in the last 3-4 months, I have scanned 1,000 to 2,000 pictures. And I started by separating out, like it was this parking lot system, and I just didn't know that's what it was called. But I separated out all the portraits, and I took a lot of them out of the folders because they just take up space. And these are the old ones and newer ones. And I separated out the black and white pictures, and then the color prints, and then the slides. And then I separated by family. So my paternal grandfather's family, my maternal grandfathers, and began making categories that way. And then I further separated by childhood, and then after their kids were married. And that was one way for me to get a handle on it.
I'll say one more thing since we're blabbing on.
Mhm.
And as a tip I got from Chris Schmucker at the Harvey County Library is reduce your bulk that you can. Take pictures out of these folders. You get so many of these folders that are like senior pictures or even wedding photos, and you start popping those out of those folders. We filled up like 2 waste baskets full of volume that we didn't need to have. We just got down to the actual print itself. So that was helpful from Chris.
And we ordered archival storage boxes so that we could put prints in there and then arranged them by the year. We did everything chronologically, pretty much within categories.
Yeah. Thank you. That is awesome advice. And I know that there's a lot more to be said about those organizing principles and stuff. So wow. And I realized, yeah, there were more comments in the Zoom chat. So thank you for responding to some of those. Well, Kathy just said that her dad has got 40,000 plus slides. So I hadn't even really thought about that size of a collection. That is a lot. So, well, but it sounds like she's able to deal with it, taking them to Costco and digitizing onto CD. Sounds like a good plan. So, yeah. Cool. Well, and I guess, I don't know, I do think that let me see. This Costco apparently does scanning, I guess. That seems to be what Kathy's saying. Is that you can, is that they'll take your photo slides and digitize them onto CD. So that, I guess that would be one option where you wouldn't have to ship them off to some company. You could take them to Costco. I'll have to do some more research on that myself. But thanks for that. And I do think that I think that you folks mentioned that, and it really is a great benefit, the ability to share this digital material so easily with your extended family in a way that big boxes of photos is not possible to do. And that just creates so much joy. So that's a great payoff at the end of all this.
But the question still remains, if some of this is only going to last 10 years, then what? And how do you keep it in a current format? Right.
And that's the, that slide that I showed earlier with the lifespans, I do think that there's a good chance that things will last longer, but I think they're just saying, hey, don't count on it lasting any longer than this. If you're relying on this to be there for you when you need it, don't count on it lasting longer than 10 years. And the way you the reason it helps to have multiple copies is that even if one of them fails, what are the odds that 2 are going to fail at the same time? What are the odds that 3 are going to fail at the same time? So I've got this I've got this little hard drive, which I just unplugged, even though I'm not supposed to. I've got this little hard drive that's sitting next to my big hard drive that I copy everything to. And so if my big hard drive, fails, if it breaks, then this will probably won't break at the exact same time. And then I can just copy from this back onto the new hard drive and I haven't lost anything. So that's just the idea of redundancy, and I think really the thing is to know that with digital materials, you can't, if you just want to put stuff in a closet and not have to think about it again, I almost think that the best option for you would be to print the photos, because they'll fade, they'll yellow over time, but they'll still be there in some form or other for 100+ years. And I think if you put a hard drive in a closet for 100 years and don't touch it, there's a pretty good chance it's not going to work when you try to start it up again. And there's also a good chance that the equipment you need to read it will be obsolete and you won't be able to get it anymore.
So are you saying always making new copies of something helps extend that life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give a comment. I used to teach art and photography and taught in the days with film and paper and chemicals and then transitioning into digital. And back in those days, they said, a standard color print made from a color negative is 10 years before it starts fading. To stick it up in a closet, dark closet, cool closet, it would extend it more. Slides, color slides like Kodachrome would last even longer than Ektachrome. Well, we've got some 70-year-old Kodachrome slides from my parents' weddings that are still really good. But they said a black and white print made with black and white developing chemicals and paper, if it is fixed well with a fixer, has a life of 1,000 years. And that's astonishing, but you look at some of these that are already over 120 years old, 150 years old, and they're still there. So if you wouldn't do that with every picture. Now, the other thing too is if you take your digital media, take down to Walmart and have it printed, the question is, what are they printing with? Is it, you have to ask them, is it a dye-based ink or is it a pigment-based ink? You may have to go far and wide to find a pigment-based ink, but if you can find a pigment-based ink printer, that has a much better chance of lasting a lot longer than just dye-based.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting, and I know that we've got the photography club, which I know, and well, it's not the photography group, which is open to anybody, of course. I know that they, and I wish I could bring it to mind, but I know that there's a service that that a lot of them use for their high quality photo printing when they want to print off a digital file. I think some judicious web searching probably bring up some options for if you want that really good enduring quality. Yeah, Kathy was questioning about labeling pictures. Yeah, we did talk about that a little bit, about kind of labeling the folders or the containers that the pictures are in. The only thing I read when I was kind of researching this presentation is I saw some advice not to use a ballpoint pen if you're going to write on the back of a photo, because the amount of pressure you have to use can damage or squish the ink around or something, especially if it's a Polaroid, I guess. So you might want to use some other kind of pen or marker to label the back of the photos. Just a thought there.
My sister told me that you can purchase archival type pens, though I did not look into that. So that might be one thing that I did not do well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also know that there's something called Archivers, I believe it's called Archivers Mist, which is a spray that you can buy from like archival specialty shops. And you spray this on older photos and supposedly it will arrest or delay the yellowing and fading process. That's something to look into too, if you're looking to preserve those old photos in physical form. And again, I think we could do a whole talk just about this, about each of these issues. You know, it's a whole world to explore.
Well, I look forward to more of these. And the Stuckies and you have convinced me to buy a scanner.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Yeah. I need to get more use out of my scanner for sure.
I just need to know what kind.
And yeah, and I don't have a real solid recommendation. I would just say, you know, I like to look at reviews from users, consumer reports or whatever, and try to find something good that way. Awesome. Well, let's see. Did I think? Oh, yeah. Thank you all. And yeah, thank you, Nancy and Brian in particular, for sharing that great info. And let me see. Oh, before I let you all go, I would just say we've got more events coming up here at the library. We've got let me. Oh darn it! I'm not gonna. I knew this would happen. I don't have them pulled up, but let me just pull up the calendar real quick and make sure I get it right. A week from today, we've got Fourth Tuesday Photography. It's this same format, Zoom meeting plus Facebook Live. And that is going to be Horses of the Flint Hills with Dave Leaker. Yeah, and really great nature photography. Enjoyable whether or not you're a photographer yourself, I would say. And then coming up the week after that, starting on the 27th, we've got a jam-packed week of online events. On the 27th, Monday the 27th, we've got a live chat with a NASA engineer who's working on the Artemis project to get humans back to the moon. I'm really excited about that one. It's going to be really cool, and I'll have to try not to get too starstruck when I'm talking to this person. Then the following day, Tuesday the 28th, we've got Jim Hoy talking about Kansas legends and folk tales. And and I see you making the heart sign there. He is a great storyteller. I talked to him earlier today, and he's just going to tell some really fun stories. And then it's not 100% confirmed yet, but I'm thinking on Friday the 31st, we've actually got another one coming in. It's going to be called Citizen Science, and it's going to be a scientist from Chicago who will talk about how you can actually contribute to real science by playing a computer game. And so stay tuned for more about that. And you can find out all more info on this on our website or on our Facebook page. And I'm going to say goodbye to our Facebook Live streaming audience now.